Welcome to Intellicide. This episode, we will be discussing Hawkeye, the Disney Plus series.
Spoiler alert.
Yes.
Like and subscribe.
Yes, sir.
If you haven't seen it yet, hit the like button and come back later.
Yes, sir. Yep. Subscribe as well.
Yes.
So, what are your thoughts on this show?
I like it. Personally, it might be, I mean, it's a different kind of show, but I really like the I like that they're giving each of these characters, more story to themselves, like with, Bucky the Winter Soldier,
Yep.
and Sam. I like that they're giving Clint his own, especially like, I think my favorite part of the whole thing is the angle of Clint as the wounded warrior.
Yes.
Like Clint has been a fighter for a long time. He's got all these scars.
Yep.
He's lost his hearing. And they even do that little montage for him. She's like, "How'd you lose your hearing?" He just shows all this montage of him getting beat up.
Right.
Over the years.
Yeah, because I mean, he's not a super soldier. He doesn't have any superpowers.
Yeah.
So it would be believable to have someone who's gone through all of that to have some kind of trauma, whether it be physical or mental.
Yeah. Which is interesting because the thing that inspired Kate for her whole life, that scene of Clint on the roof during the Battle of New York, and he jumps off the roof and shoots the arrow and swings in. To her, that inspired her for her whole life. To him, that was super traumatic. Like to him, he just remembers like being scared and pain, and like to him, the whole thing's like a PTSD episode.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I think they have done a good job of it. He's a mortal man with a family, no less. And you can see the trauma that he endured during Endgame or whatever, because his family, his wife and his children were gone. It wasn't like, okay, my wife's gone and I still have my children. My entire family was wiped out in that snap. Right. So even though they're back or whatever, he's still, dealing with the residuals of that.
It's interesting because Hamilton, which is obviously what it's like a play on, Hamilton delves into like kind of the dirty details of Alexander Hamilton's life, his affair, whatnot. But you wonder, like, Rogers the musical, like how much do they even know? Like I was really curious to see that,
Right. Yeah. And he's sitting there with his children and he's like, who wasn't there? That guy. And he's talking about the character, the actor Ant-Man that was playing Ant-Man.
But the funny part is Ant-Man was there.
Well, he didn't know that. And Ant-Man was the funny part
is like, I wonder, during Endgame, when Ant-Man goes back with Cap and Iron Man to the Battle of New York, so he was there running around as Ant-Man. Somebody must have seen him.
They may have, right? They may have.
I wonder, and there's that whole scene where he's arguing with Cap and Iron Man in the alley, and I just wonder if anybody witnessed that. Like, was there someone who saw that?
You know what? I might go back and rewatch it or whatever, just to look for that scene and see if there's somebody that's passing by in the back,
like in the back, or a face sticking out of a window or something. Because I thought that was an interesting detail that he's like, he wasn't there. He wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. I find myself enjoying the series as well. I do like this young woman, Kate Bishop, and she, it's one of those things where I believe that they weren't able to fully address in the Netflix series of shows that they had. They always mentioned this big event in New York, in Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage,
the Battle of New York.
But they never showed any trauma, how that trauma affected each of these characters. Whereas this series, in the first episode or whatever, you can see Kate, her father got blown away. I mean, you don't see it or whatever, but she's like, Dad, and the relationship she had with her father. And then after that, hey, I'm a traumatized little girl who doesn't have her father anymore.
Well, and it's one of those little arcs I thought was interesting where she's like, you know, what will you do, Dad, during a hurricane? Like she's afraid of a hurricane. Like what'll happen? And,
Right.
and he's like, I'll protect you. Don't worry. I'll always be there to protect you. And then a crisis comes and he immediately gets killed. He's not there to protect her.
Right.
So like the one thing she thought, I thought this was so her immediate reaction to that was, well, he can't be around to protect me. I need a bow and arrow. I got to protect myself.
Yeah. Right.
You know? And so she learned martial arts. And so she, I think that's an interesting, that trauma of losing her father, informed.
Well, and another
coupled with her seeing Hawkeye do that.
Hawkeye. Right. But another good thing that they did, which, I don't know if people actually took what I took from it. When she goes up against this tracksuit mafia, even though she is a skilled, black belt in this or whatever, and I've taken it,
state
she's getting her butt kicked.
Yeah.
Hey, she's a young lady.
She got a couple of good licks in, but yeah.
Yeah,
which
say what
reminds me a lot of the Daredevil show, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like, they get in their first fight, and it's like, it's not like you thought it was, is it?
Right. Yeah. Like, this ain't no, it's a comic book, and I got out with no scars or nothing. Like, nah, you got your butt handed to you a couple of times.
Yeah. It is funny because it's you rewatch that Netflix Daredevil, and that whole first season he spends just getting pounded on.
I did enjoy that, whatever. And even though it's a serious situation, I do enjoy the comedic aspects of this one. I think this one has had a little bit more levity than a lot of these other shows.
One of the things too is showing the trauma. Excuse me. Clint re-experiencing so much of the things that he's gone through shows that he like as a human without powers, he spends most of his time just getting beat up,
right?
And so even when he goes to turn himself into the tracksuit mafia, he's doing this badass move like Nat did, like his wife mentioned, catch and release, one of Nat's old moves. Even when he goes in and does it, they kind of beat him up a little.
Right. It's funny. He's because he's not Black Widow, even though like when they were on Vormir, he was able to somewhat hold his own against her, but he's not the fight. Even though he's a skilled fighter, he's not Black Widow.
Right. He's not on her level.
Yeah.
Which is why she won.
Yep.
But I mean, it is so I don't know, I enjoy it. It is one of those really good storytelling things. I do like the dog, Pizza Dog, which is from the comics also, which in the Matt Fraction run they had of Hawkeye, they had an issue where it was told the whole issue was told completely from Pizza Dog's perspective. That's one of my favorite issues.
I listen, if you haven't read the comic books or whatever, you're missing a lot. Just like we talked on other episodes, when you have something that's going from even if it's just a comic book where you're able to do a little bit more, first person perspective, the inner thoughts, etc. It's hard to try to encapsulate that when you move to a visual, and where you have to show or whatever rather than tell. And it's not able to capture everything. These comics, and while I do disagree with some of the or a lot of the modern day comics, because a lot of it is just violence with no point. There's very little character building as it was in the past. To me, Marvel is no longer the house of ideas that it used to be. I do enjoy
being a longtime comic book reader. My personal opinion is that there's always been, the majority of comics have always been mostly garbage. I mean, to be quite honest, there are nuggets of brilliance in it, though. And that's kind of the thing. That's a frustrating thing, right? Like you'll be reading, or I would be reading Amazing Spider-Man, and there are just long stretches of garbage and boring where finally you hit like a few issues of a great story. You're like, that was great. And the very next storyline is garbage again. You're like, what was that?
we had this discussion before. One of the things that I enjoy or whatever was when you look at these comics as a small snippet into this character's lives or whatever, you had the moments where, hey, Peter Parker is just going on a dinner date with Aunt May or whatever. And while a lot of young kids may not appreciate that, at least you can see the relationship built between the Peter and his aunt or whatever. And you can't spend the majority of 20 something page comic book fighting a villain, month in, month out, or issue after issue without having that stuff, because you wouldn't care. You wouldn't care. Like, hey, Doc Ock is gonna, kill Aunt May. Well, I don't care. I haven't seen Aunt May, and I don't have any.
If you didn't care about her character, it wouldn't mean anything.
So, but it's those moments where, it's necessary for a comic writer to introduce those things or whatever, so the reader can develop that rapport with the characters. And we've talked about how Secret Wars and big events like that has changed comic books, where now you're literally just having one event bleed into the next. It's almost like, Endgame, and then you go into, immediately into the next villain, major villain piece. You don't have any, like, oh yeah, hey, I'm going to school, I'm just going out on a date with my love interest, or any of that stuff. Hey, I just got finished with Endgame. Now I'm going into, next game or this and that.
Right.
It doesn't work.
He had to go to Homecoming.
Right. So yeah, I do enjoy this series so far with the little things, again with Kate and her father, the relationship with Kate and her mother. She's away at school, and she's impress her friends. She destroys the clock tower.
Which someone had mentioned something. I didn't see it when I watched it, but apparently that was an Obadiah Stane tower. The clock tower had been apparently built by
I think it said like Stane Tower.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of a neat detail that was the guy who donated it was the guy that was in the very first Marvel movie that really started in Iron Man.
Yep.
That guy.
Well,
He was actually one of the best villains, personally.
Well, you're right. Yeah, because he had a close relationship with Tony, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Marvel has done a good, job of building this world or whatever. And, it is a homage to comic fans or comic readers or whatever. But I just think that they've done a good job of tying all these properties together. It's a shared world. And, I'm excited, man. I wish that Hawkeye was going to be more than 6 episodes, right? It's only 6 episodes.
I'm really grateful that we get to see these.
And
I think it's only 6 episodes. The thing I think that the tension that's going to come up because of the difference in mediums from comic book to movies and TV is that in the comics, they go from event to event. And you might get a few characters switched in and out, but largely it's the same core characters. Right. It's like the Avengers, the X-Men, Fantastic Four. They're largely like the same people in all the events. Without being because the actors aren't sticking around, right? You can't do that. Like they did their Endgame, and honestly, and I don't blame any of them. Like they're like kind of, I'm done. Right. So they need to start over and do a new one with new characters. Which everybody understands. The thing is, in the comics, they never did that. Like, there's no story in the comics they can use as a basis for a show with Shang-Chi and the Young Avengers against Kang. I mean, there's kind of a Young Avengers Kang thing if they do that, but they haven't even introduced Young Avengers yet.
Well, right. I mean, I honestly, I think we're going to get a new Avengers team. And honestly, I don't know who's going to be on it. There may be Vision, Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, maybe. I don't know about the Hulk. I don't know about Shang-Chi,
Right.
and his Arrow companion.
Right.
But I mean, they have some character. Oh, and Black Panther. His sister who is supposed to assume that mantle. But how long is that going to take? Right now, Black Panther 2 has been postponed or delayed because of her injury. I don't know how serious it is, but hopefully she will be okay, and it won't delay matters too much. We've already had a few movies pushed back a little ways. So, we probably won't see another Avengers movie for a good, 3 to 5 years.
I hope not.
If that.
They really need to do the world building before they do something like that. Yeah.
Well, they could. I mean, COVID. Like now, let's not dismiss the impact that COVID has had on a lot of these films as well.
Yeah.
COVID has delayed them, but they can do the individual world building in some of these movies. If you think about it, the first Avengers movie, outside of introducing Loki and that first gem, you didn't have any idea how that gem played into someone who hadn't read the comics. You had no idea that it was going to be as big as it was, or the impact or the lethality of that issue. I think they can do that again in another Avengers movie where they don't have to introduce Kang right away. Kang can be, just like Thanos, a background character. We as viewers know that he's there, but they can have some other villain in a new Avengers movie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be an entry. I hope, and this is where I think I see it going, and I hope I'm right. What was an interesting dynamic is they did movies. You got like a full 2-hour movie of each of the main characters, most of the main characters, right?
Right.
And then they did a little bit of TV where some of them dabbled. Like you had some crossover from the movies into the television shows, where like Sif appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., things like that. Mm-hmm. But come Endgame, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., none of the TV properties were in the movie.
Right.
What I think they have an opportunity to do now, which I think would be really cool, is lay the groundwork in all these TV shows, in all these, series where you actually get to do character building. So you actually get to know these characters in their own series first.
Right.
And then you do a movie later on where boom, Kate Bishop shows up in the movie.
Right.
And you know who she is, and you care about her as a character already.
Absolutely. I agree with you, but unfortunately, and we mentioned this before as well. I don't think that Marvel has done enough to use these television series to develop these characters for another movie. I mean, like Hawkeye and Winter Soldier. That was last year, right?
No, that was earlier this year.
Okay, so it was earlier this year, but you haven't heard anything about another season of that show. You haven't heard anything about it, and that's where I had mentioned before that you can have these characters in these series without messing with these movie ideas. I don't need to see Hawkeye and Winter Soldier in dealing with anything that has to do with the movies.
Right.
I could just have hey, Winter Soldier.
I could just watch the two of them on a road trip.
Right. Winter Soldier just went on a date with my sister. Hey man, what you do with my sister?
Right. I would watch that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, hey man, we going to save the world. No, we like you said, hey, we just going on a road trip. We just getting away to relax, and we run into our own tracksuit mafia or whatever.
Right.
That it could be as small as that. We're not dealing with these characters like Thor and Captain Marvel, why can't they deal with, almost like the Netflix superheroes where I'm just dealing with street level thugs.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Well,
doable.
the rumor is that Daredevil is going to show up in Spider-Man, and maybe we'll be able to cross some of those. I mean, my theory, and so before we end here,
yeah,
I might have mentioned this in a previous episode, but my theory for what's happening here is that, they laid the ground with Loki and the multiverse and WandaVision with, breaking the multiverse, whatever she did. But then Spider-Man, and I think all these are going to be cumulative, right? Like they kind of team up to break the multiverse. But then Spider-Man, what I think they're going to do is merge all of the universes into one property. Because if you watch the trailer from Morbius, it actually has elements of the same Raimi universe, has elements of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, has elements from the MCU. So Morbius comes out after Spider-Man. So my suspicion is, their deal with Sony is basically that now they're going to have a shared universe with Sony.
Okay.
Basically. So now all of them will be.
We'll see, man. I just think that Disney or Marvel with the sparsity of these shows premiering on Disney Plus, that they could do a lot more with them, man. I don't want to have to wait like a year and a half or 2 years or more for these seasons of these shows to come out. It's no reason for it. Like, I'm used to, hey, in the fall, the shows premiere. It goes on hiatus for Christmas. It comes back for another, 10, 12 episodes after that. And then, we have a summer break, and some networks like AMC have gotten it where you can watch The Walking Dead, whether it be, the main show, Fear the Walking Dead, or The World Beyond, year round, pretty much. That's where I think Marvel needs to be headed, man, where, hey, this show comes out here, the next show comes out, after that, and so on.
I think they're ramping up to that eventually. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. It is one of those things where right now and Disney, but then again, who knows? Disney, the problem with Disney has always played with scarcity to drive up the value, artificial scarcity to drive up the value. Right. Like they do that whole thing where they put movies in the vault in order to make them more valuable.
Right.
I've
never bought any of those movies like that.
What's that?
I've never bought any of those movies like that. Like, oh, they just released Cinderella, and it's only, out for a limited time. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's frustrating, but so I wouldn't be surprised at all if Disney then applied that same kind of tactic to their studios and purposely only made so many shows in order to.
I can only believe that somewhat, man, especially when we see the example of The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is going into what season now?
3.
Is it 3 or 4? Is it 3? Okay, so how long has Disney Plus been out? Disney Plus hasn't been out for 4 years.
No, yeah, a little over
exactly. So the Mandalorian is showing that it can be done.
Yeah,
and so I don't see why they can't do that with these other properties or whatever. Star Trek is their biggest, franchise by far. And you're releasing. Well, you were releasing these Star Wars movies every year, whether it be like the original follow-ups or whatever, or these Rogue One, etc. You can do it. You choose not to with these superhero movies.
I mean, they're coming out with superhero movies. It's the shows, though, I think that I'd like to see more of. Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, it's just it's one of those things that I don't understand it, because they're clamoring for them. People are clamoring for them.
Yeah, we'd watch them for sure.
Yep. So what are your thoughts? How do you rate Hawkeye?
So we're only a third of the series, 2 episodes in, and honestly, though, I think
three came out Friday. Or
Of Hawkeye?
It's already out. You need to go watch it.
Oh, well, I know what I'm doing when we're done.
Oh, come on, man.
So, okay. So the third episode's out. So, are you sure?
Yes, I
Okay.
watched it. Yes.
All right, damn. Shows what I know. You know what I've been watching? Total side here. You know what I've been watching is actually pretty good?
No.
Well, two things. First off, Dogs in Space on Netflix.
Really?
Really. Seriously, it's actually pretty funny. It's a little bit dark, but it's kind of funny.
Dogs in Space.
Dogs in Space.
Okay.
Basically, humanity screws up the earth, and so they genetically modify dogs to have thumbs and send them out into space to find a new home for man. It's kind of dark. It's kind of cynical, but it's like the whole thing, they don't shy away from it in the series either. So it's kind of
Jesus.
But the other one is Elves on Netflix, which they just premiered, I think, today. And I already watched. It's only like 3 hours, the whole thing. But it's actually really good. It's a Danish show that's the idea of the elves not being Christmas elves. It's a Christmas show. The elves are not kind little helpers. But so as far as Hawkeye, honestly, I've really liked it. I'd give it a 4.
I agree, man. I'd give it a 4 as well, man.
Yeah. It could actually go up to a 5 by the end of the series. But we'll see.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I mean
that was me.
What's that?
I just started the Hawkeye show.
Wow. So I will say I haven't seen the third episode yet, but I do. They've already given away that the stepdad Duquesne is the swordsman.
Yeah.
I thought that they've kind of, there's something shady going on with him.
Dude, right.
That they gave, and I can't remember the woman's name. I want to say it was like Sophia Bovia or something like that. There's like the name of the woman whose apartment that she goes to. And in the comics, it's the woman who owns the mansion in LA. She's like a former movie star who houses the West Coast Avengers. And she actually becomes a character in it. And she actually becomes like an honorary Avenger. This old woman. And they showed her name at one point. Okay. In the show. So I thought that was kind of, they keep adding all these little Easter eggs for like West Coast Avengers fans and stuff. Okay. So I don't know. I thought that was good.
You know what? I take that back, man. I guess it was only episode 2 that I watched. I thought it was 3.
Okay.
I thought episode 3
was so good. It felt like 3 episodes.
Listen, right. It comes out Friday, right?
No, I think this one's doing Wednesday.
Wednesday? Okay. So yeah, it came out Wednesday and I didn't watch it until Friday. That's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, Wednesday's the new Friday for Disney Plus.
Okay. Yeah, well, with everything that was going on this week with Thanksgiving and
you can be forgiven.
Yeah, okay. I got you. I'm sorry to get your hopes up.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, all right. Damn. So what would you say? You give it a 4?
Oh yeah, I definitely give it a 4. I mean, I really am enjoying this series or whatever. All right. And again, it's nothing world shattering. It's not like they're going after a cosmic cube or any of the Infinity Gems. It's just a young girl, her mother, and I mean, it's life threatening, but it's not world breaking or shattering.
Well, and it's not even life threatening. It is in a way. It's interesting to see it's Clint trying to clean up his own mess from when he was Ronin, but he's trying to do it on the DL. He hasn't actually told anybody that what he did when he was Ronin.
Yeah, like exactly. Nobody knows who he was. Right. Yep.
So.
Oh, right. But now they think that Kate Bishop is Ronin.
Right.
So I right. That's terrifying. Well, not for her. I mean, she doesn't realize the impact or whatever, but the world, it could be after her and bad elements could be after her. So
yeah, which the rumor is, well, I mean, in the comic books, the Tracksuit Mafia worked for the Kingpin.
Yeah. Well, right. But again, people, you know, I pray that they are able to incorporate these Netflix series.
Yeah, wouldn't that be
that's what,
great? Vincent D'Onofrio shows up as the
oh,
Kingpin.
dude, that would be awesome, man. The only thing that I worry about, man, with Michael Coulter now in the CBS series Evil, that he won't be able to reprise being Luke Cage. But
Yeah,
you know, I think the casting in those Netflix series was you know outstanding. Kristen
yeah.
Ritter as Jessica Jones, etc.
I think it'd be
So
great to have any of them show up in an MCU show.
it would. It
Yeah.
would. Yep.
Let's hope. Fingers
All
crossed.
right. Yes, sir. I'll keep my fingers crossed. So, all right, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Remember to like
But
and
you know,
subscribe.
right, like and subscribe, and please follow up. You know, with our next episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Intellicide signing off.
Signing off.